Sheddington.
I think we're all going to emerge out of this like something from the 1970s, they reckon. Or guys with long grey hair everywhere. Well, no one's getting a haircut, are they? Really? I'm not sure.
Yes, Chris is. I was just listening.
Morning, Susan.
Hello, Chris. And hello, Chris.
Oh, hey, hi, Sue. Welcome.
There's somebody else who's just
Jerry.
got a little icon. It says iPhone.
Yes, someone just
I think
came
that's
on.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Jerry. Yes. Hi, Jerry.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Hello.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
Hey.
And Mark is on his way, and somebody else who's just identified as iPhone at the moment.
Yeah, that's me, Vin.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Hi.
I hear you. Yes.
Hi, Vin.
Can you-
Hi. Good to. Well.
Hi. Just tuned in.
Oh, I'm so
Hopefully-
pleased you're joining us. That's
Thank you very
terrific.
much. I'm happy listening what you're talking about. Great.
Well, I don't know if it's worth kicking off now. I've got a short video which some of you might have seen, but for those who haven't, just to bring it up to speed, it's an interview that David Attenborough did with Andrew Marr last Saturday, actually. It's only about 8 minutes. I thought we'd show that just as a discussion starter, and then I'm going to hand over to Bob Bollen, who's got some slides to show us and to get us thinking.
Oh, fantastic, yeah.
David, there is a moment about 2/3 of the way through the film when I kind of want to cut my throat. I think it's all so awful and so despairing. But the last part of the film suggests that even at this late stage, we can genuinely change course, rewild the planet, and live differently. How can we do that?
Well, we can look to the younger generation who are actually going to do it, because they will actually be able to see the consequences of what they do. My lot are dying off. We are the ones that cause the problem. But if you can live in a more modest economic way as an ambition, don't waste things. Think this world is precious. Think your time is precious. Think that the rest of the natural world is precious, and all those things need cherishing. That's the fundamental attitude. The world is not a bowl of fruit from which we can just take what we wish. We are part of it, and if we destroy it, we destroy ourselves.
Something I wondered about was what link there is between this pandemic, COVID-19, if you like, at the moment, and the climate emergency, because I'd be very interested to know, and there is some evidence, I think, already, but whether there is a link.
If there wasn't a link, there is one now, I think. People are really, it's brought it to a head, hasn't it, that these things can sort of happen if we don't look after the environment, look after each other. And there's a lot of talk about animals, isn't there, being badly treated or whatever, and in close proximity to humans in these markets in China. So the question is, does the government distance itself a bit more from China and what's happening over there? All kinds of things could happen, but I think it's made us think, and there is a kind of link between the two, really, and it could be quite positive, couldn't it, as an outcome?
We hope it could be, because one of the things about the coronavirus is all sorts of things are going to change as a result. And
we hope.
And they might,
I think there's
and there might be pressure to change them in a good way, potentially, hopefully.
I think personally, I'm actually quite a danger at China bashing, which I see going on.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
More
China.
right wing, and
yes.
As someone who's actually collaborated with Chinese and actually with Chinese people in Wuhan with a Royal Society Fellowship in the 90s, not fellowship, but a sponsored collaboration for about 3 years. I've worked with these people back then, and I think one of the reasons I felt it was a good idea to do it was because it meant that the countries didn't become further apart. And I don't think it's a good idea to distance yourself, because if you do that, it's I think it can have quite negative consequences.
Indeed.
My role within RBK is setting up a community hub. We're trying to find a perfect template to set hubs up throughout the borough. The irony was my job was all about getting lots of people together, and after 5 months of intense graft, it all got cancelled in 2 days. So it was all about getting communities together, getting people together, getting people to come forward with the ideas and skills they have. I mean, the common theme with all of you being, well, you know, I don't really know much, but actually when you're talking, you've got so many amazing skills and you all know so much, you're all amazing. And I think the wonderful thing about these sheds or hubs, or it gives people this opportunity to be able to share what they know. When I was dealing with individuals, you know, I was dealing with people, some had doctorates and they were working in the city and earning £120,000 a year. I was working with mothers who hadn't worked for 10 years. I was working with people of all ages, all backgrounds. And when they were struggling emotionally, they all had this common ground that they believed they were the only ones who weren't coping and everybody else around them was doing okay. And I thought, well, these people need to be brought together to hear that everyone else is struggling. You know, we're all struggling in life. And that's what I really love about my group sessions, is the way that people start helping each other and the experiences they've had, their own personal experiences, they start guiding other people out of their situation. I find it really, really amazing.
I don't feel particularly worried at all. I feel very relaxed most of the time. But there's 2 or 3 people who have contacted me and who actually are depressed. I think they're, rather than anxious, actually depressed, maybe not clinically depressed, but feeling that what they like to do, especially if they are outdoors people, has suddenly come to a stop. And if they live on their own, particularly, are just very, very low in mood, really, I suppose. And I think for older people, this is somebody who's probably in their late 70s, early 80s, that time is more precious in some ways, you're older, because you're not, you know, when you're younger, I suppose you think, well, there's years to come. Whereas when you're older, you know that it's limited. And there's a limited amount of time in which you are fit enough to maybe do what you like to do. My response has been, you know, our understanding of what it means to be living has changed, and that it's basically down to the sort of basics of life, really, the warmth, shelter, food, and family, probably, and that we have to appreciate what we do have rather than what we don't have. But that's very different. That's me. I mean, that is me. And that's very difficult to say to somebody who isn't of that kind of mindset. So I'm really wondering what sort of, how to approach, you know, sort of saying to people, you know, I mean, because you're just saying to people, we know we're so better off than other people, you know, but you know that in your rationally, but you don't necessarily feel that. You know, it's like when we were kids, we left food on our plate, and my parents used to say, think of the starving kids over in Biafra or whatever, and you think, yes, I have, but I still don't want to eat this. You know what I mean? I mean, it's that kind of approach, isn't it? You know it, in a very rational way. But
I think we often spend our time trying to say to people, no, it's all right, you don't have to feel like that. Or I think even just hearing them and listening to them and allowing them to express that, I mean, that in itself, I think, is a wonderful thing. And the fact that you're considering them and empathizing with their situation, I think sometimes people don't necessarily want to be fixed. They want to be heard, don't they?
Can you see the UK on there? Over here. We've got the British Isles. And all the white is the ice. So at the peak of the last glaciation, ice was right down as far as Finchley, and you can track it by glacial erratics, rocks that were moved by the ice. And if you go to the coast of East Anglia, somewhere like West Runton, you can see you can see rocks where you have got sort of, I haven't got a picture of it here, I've got it on a slide, but not on here. You can see sort of brown rock that is twists and turns where it has been moved by glacial action. And then that's sort of high up like a cliff. And then right down at the bottom, you can see a dark line, which is peaked from the time when it was much, much warmer. So in various parts of the British Isles, you can still see things that tell us how climate changed. Raised beaches in Scotland are another one. So anyway, here we've got the ice coming right down, and this vertical line is tundra. So the tundra is quite a way down, and to get the sort of climate that we've got now here, sort of vegetation, you're right down somewhere like Spain. And here's another one. This at the top, we've got the timberline. There is the timberline in Europe. No trees grow north of that. And you can see Scandinavia there, British Isles here. And then during the coldest part of the last glaciation, the last time when the ice was far down, that line there is the tree line then. So when to use a very unscientific name, our caveman ancestors making stone tools were living in places like southwest France, that's where the tree line was. So there were no trees in England. And then gradually you get different trees as the climate warmed up, about, give or take, 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. The climate starts to warm up and we get trees gradually recolonize Britain, just as an example, Britain. And the first things that come in are things like birch and pine. And gradually you get to the broad-leaved wildwood forest that would have covered much of the British Isles until people came in from Europe in Mesolithic. You could walk across the North Sea at one time.
You know, you get these natural fluctuations, or over a big time scale, including ice ages and such like. But I think you were saying at the moment, although we're in a warm period anyway, but it's actually hotter than it should be at the moment. Is that what you were?
Yes. Look at what was said in the Paris Agreement, what the aims of that were. That would be a start. And obviously, we don't control the Earth's orbit. We don't control natural processes. But there are lots of things we can control, that we don't have to pollute so much. We don't have to buy so much stuff. We can everybody can cut down a bit.
We're going to make some little squares to write on for the bingo. So what you have to do is brilliant. So that's what you're going to write the numbers in. Lockdowns are bore, 24. Look after yourself, number 1. Need more wine, number 9. Get Brexit done, 31.
What? Sorry. What number?
Sorry about that. That's old news. Right.
31, was it?
You could do that.
Yeah, get Brexit done, 31. Has nobody won yet?
Not quite.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got 2 left.
Oh, I've got 3 numbers.
Hey, Holly may have gone adrift then. It doesn't matter. Hampton Wicks, 36.
Yay, bingo!
Other Ian, have you been building anything at home, or have you been?
No, I've been so busy with work that I've had hardly any time to do anything. But I've mostly been upgrading operating systems on some of the computers around here. So there's been a lot of that going on. But one thing I ought to say is that it's on a slightly creative note. I don't know if anybody's been watching. I think it's Grayson Perry's art. Well, my son's on it on Monday.
Oh, excellent! Oh, fantastic!
So he makes 4 little play creatures every Saturday, and he's been doing that for the last 10 or more years.
Oh,
so you can work out there are a few of these creatures lying around the place, and Grayson rather liked them, so he's actually going to be on the.
Oh, how brilliant! Oh, that's terrific.